Welcome back, Care Partners. Most people don't bring their loved one with dementia in until the signs and symptoms are obvious. But what if I told you that the brain leaves clues years earlier if you know where to look? In today's video, I am going to show you the 6 key areas that differentiates normal aging from dementia. Plus, I'll share with you the hidden cognitive functions, brain function, that predicts dementia even before memory problems show up. For those of you who are new here, my name is Dr. Sinclair. I'm a neuropsychologist and dementia care specialist. Let's jump on in. Let's break down, Care Partners, the 6 areas that I'm going to review with you. And I'm going to give you real life caregiver statements that I hear in the clinic all the time. The areas that we're going to focus on are areas of memory, areas of judgment, areas of personality and mood changes. We're also going to discuss executive functions, and I'll explain to you what that means in a moment. And we're also going to discuss language. And if you see me looking down, Care Partners, that's because I have my notes here of all the caregiver complaints that I want to share with you. Care Partners, the first domain that we'll review is memory. So normal aging memory lapses, that can be you forgot someone's name and then it came to you later. Or you made lunch plans with your daughter and she got to the venue first, it slipped your mind, but then when she called you and said, "Mom, I'm here," you said, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I'll be right there." So when you're cued in or clued in, you're able to remember the event. That's normal aging. Abnormal memory, Care Partners, is when you forget that you've had the conversation all together with your daughter. And when she calls, you're just like, "What are you talking about? I never said I was going to meet you for lunch." So that's abnormal aging. That's when you want to start worrying that there could be something significant going on here. Another care partner, let's call her Lisa, mentioned that her mom repeats questions with no memory of asking as well. So even when Lisa reminds her, "Oh, you just asked me that and I just said," her mom looks at her very shocked. "No, I didn't just ask you that." So if your loved ones have no recall whatsoever when you cue them or clue them in, then there's an issue, okay? So again, let's say it from Lisa's end. Lisa says, "It's not just that Mom forgot lunch we planned. She insisted we never talked about it." That's when I knew that this wasn't just forgetfulness, Dr. Sinclair. That's when I knew I had to bring Mom in. Okay, Care Partner, so if you're noticing those kinds of signs, then it's time to have your loved one assessed and evaluated. Let's go on to the next domain. Our next domain is judgment. So, occasionally we all have poor judgment, okay? Your dad goes outside and he doesn't put sunscreen on. Even though he knows the dangers of the UV rays, he does not put sunscreen on. So, occasional lapse of judgment. But when your loved one with dementia is showing ongoing poor judgment, ongoing unsafe choices, that's when you want to be a bit more concerned. What do I mean by that? Here's an example, a few examples that I've gotten from recent caregivers. Falling for scams quite easily. Now, let's face it, Care Partners, some of these scammers are getting so sophisticated. But when your loved one is repeatedly falling for scams or repeatedly sending money offshore to someone that they're in love with, right? I worked with a family recently. Their dad had frontotemporal dementia and he kept sending money to his love interest overseas. So if you see your loved one making those types of consistent poor choices, it could be time to bring your loved one with dementia in. Dressing inappropriately is another key sign that your loved one is probably struggling with poor judgment. What do I mean by that? So your loved one is now wearing shorts outside on a snowy, wintry day. That's a sign of poor judgment. Or your loved one with dementia is leaving the stove on. That's a sign of poor judgment. Leaving the stove on to go and do another task. That's a sign of poor judgment. So if you're seeing those signs and symptoms, it could be time to bring your loved one in. And here's what, let's call her Lisa, has said about that. "She gave a stranger her credit card info over the phone twice. That's not just a mistake. It was a sign that it was time for us to bring Mom in." Okay, Care Partners, so if you're noticing some of those judgment lapses, it could be time. The third most common task or domain that I hear Care Partners complain of is that their loved one struggled with sequencing. So what do I mean by that? So care partners, sequencing just means multi-steps to a task. So step 1, step 2, step 3 to any task. So normal aging, that can look like your mom is calling you because she's navigating something new on the internet, right? So you have to go through it again with her. Mom, go to this tab, do this, do that, because it's something that she's not familiar with. It's complex for her. Where it's abnormal aging, care partners, and possibly dementia is when your loved one is struggling with simple tasks. They don't know how to work the microwave, so they can't heat up their food. Right? They don't recognize, put the food on the plate, step 1, open the microwave door, step 2, put the plate in, step 3, close the door, press the buttons, etc. So they're struggling with these normal, everyday, multi-step functions. Or another way that can look like, care partners, is they're getting lost and confused with how to make toast, right? So when we start to see these more simple multi-step tasks that your loved one is struggling with, that could be an indicator of dementia. And one of my care partners came in and recently said, I handed her the pancake mix and she just stared at it. She couldn't remember what came next, even with the instructions on the box. That's when I knew it was time to come on in. Okay, so if you're noticing that kind of sequencing deficits with your loved one with dementia, that could be a sign for you as well, care partners. Let's move on to the fourth one. Before I move on, care partners, if this is helpful for you, then I have a guide down below so that you can print this off and check off any of the areas that your loved one is struggling with. Bring it to your doctor, and it helps to inform the conversation that you have with your doctor around the observations that you see. Let's move on to the next common domain, the next area that my care partners tend to complain of. So the next area is personality changes. Normal aging, your loved one gets set in their ways. They don't want to change their routine. Heck, you're probably getting set in your ways and not wanting to change your routine right now. So that's typical personality changes that we'll see. A preference to have things done a certain way. With abnormal aging, your loved one with dementia suddenly has labile mood. So that means these mood swings. And especially if they weren't prone to them before. So if your loved one with dementia always had labile mood, then that's not a new symptom. But if someone who is pretty normal, mild-mannered, now started having these labile mood, these huge shifts in their mood, it's time to probably have that looked at. As well, care partners, if your loved one with dementia starts to get very suspicious of you and suspicious of your intentions, it's usually with the care partners, usually with those closest to them, then that can also be a sign that something's going on. Particularly for one of my newer patients with Lewy body dementia, he started being very suspicious of his wife and her intentions and not wanting to eat the food that she was serving to him. That's a massive red flag that you want to get evaluated. Our next domain, care partners, is executive functions. Executive function is a fancy word. Think of it as a CEO, a chief executive officer, the boss in the company. So your executive functions are the boss of your brain. Those are functions responsible for planning, organizing, even sequencing, what we reviewed up above. Those are higher order brain tasks. Your ability to initiate a task, start a task, plan a task, remember to do the task. We can create these judgments in a very structured way. So those are executive functions. Normal aging, your loved one with dementia may occasionally forget to pay a bill, but when you remind them, they do it. Or they occasionally forget how to do a complex task, but when you remind them, they write it down and they get it the next time. Someone with dementia, they lose the ability to manage their finances altogether. They lose the ability to take care of their hygiene altogether, right? Some of these higher order functioning tasks that we have to do, they're losing that ability. And so one care partner came in and said, I found a pile of unopened mail and expired prescriptions on the counter. She kept insisting that everything was fine. So there's a pile of unopened mail, care partners, right? So usually when the mail comes, you know you have to open it to see if there's something important in there. That's the boss telling you that you have to take care of business. Your loved one with dementia start losing that ability to take care of themselves in that important way. Losing the ability to manage the finance. They've lost the ability to call the doctor's office and actually set up the appointment. And in fact, it's these executive functioning deficits that is the first sign of dementia, far before maybe some of the other signs that show up. If you start to see that, it's time to get them evaluated. Our next domain, care partners, is language. So normal aging lapses, care partners, occasionally your loved one may not remember a word in a sentence. My goodness, that happens to us, right? Abnormal aging is your loved one with dementia is frequently forgetting words, and even when you cue them, they still look a little confused, okay? Or they start replacing words with vague language, such as that thing. You know, that thing, whatchamacallit, right? They're using vague language. They're not actually trying to use language to describe what it is that they need. If you're noticing that, that can be indicative of a sign to have your loved one evaluated. One of my caregivers said she'd stop mid-sentence and look frustrated, like the word disappeared midair, and it kept happening. So that's the key, care partners. If you're noticing frequent lapses with language, that's a sign. Now, care partners, you know some of the major cognitive brain areas that we assess and evaluate to determine if symptoms are normal aging or if it could be indicative of dementia. I'm going to have a slide here with the list of the domains that we went over. And again, down below, linked for you, is the checklist. Feel free to print it off so that you can circle some of the observations that you've noticed in your loved one. This will help to guide your conversation at the doctor's office. If after watching this video, care partners, you recognize that your loved one with dementia likely needs to be evaluated, then go ahead and watch the next video. In that video, I walk you through how we actually diagnose dementia. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.